Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is Shining Light, where I'm shining lights on true crime and things that make you go, And today I told y'all I was going to get back with y'all on my video about filicide. And that's what we're going to talk about today. It's filicide. I'm going to let y'all know all kinds of stuff about it. Sorry, the phone's a little shaky. I'm trying to set it up. There we go. Alright. Okay, filicide, or the murder of one's own child, we all know is an unfathomable crime. And there's a case with Andrea Yates back in the summer of 2006, where filicide once again came to the forefront of psychiatric issues in the media. One positive outcome that may be derived from this tragedy is called practitioners' heightened awareness that parents may, for a variety of reasons, be compelled to kill their children. Now, this is aimed to educate mental health victims, shall I say, about the concept of filicide, I'm not even going to say mental health victims, I'm just going to say the public, about the concept of filicide by presenting an overview of the topic. I'm going to talk about the history, define what it is, some classifications, the outcomes, and a little bit of the research surrounding it. And hopefully this knowledge will bring awareness and it'll increase the exploration of patients or parents' thoughts of harming their children, and may ultimately... I cannot talk this morning, you guys. I'm so tired. I was up all night. Well, late last night, doing my children's hair and getting them ready for school today. So I'm tired. It may ultimately lead to the prevention of these senseless crimes. There's filicide, infanticide, neonaticide, parents-child murder. On June 20th in 2001, Andrea Yates drowned her 5 children, which ranged in age from 6 months to 7 years old, in a bathtub in her home. Just prior to this, she manifested symptoms of depression with psychosis, which were all from postpartum periods. She was hospitalized 4 times and was catatonic and mute during one admission. In some of her statements made following the crime, she did indicate that she believed that she was a bad mother and that she had concerns that her children would not grow up properly because of her shortcomings. And then she went on to say that she killed them to save them from eternal damnation. In early 2002, she went to trial in Harris County, Texas, which she entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, NGRI. The jury, I'm sorry guys, I promise you that I'm tired. The jury hearing her case was death qualified, which means that all jurors, blah 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 blah. Sorry guys. All jurors, I still cannot talk. Jurors, just even forget that word, supported the philosophy of the death penalty and was willing to use it in sentencing. She wasn't sentenced to death, but she was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, making her eligible for parole in 40 years. In 2005, due to an error made by the prosecution's expert witness, the conviction was reversed and the case was remanded back to the trial court. In June 2006, Andrea Yates returned to trial and again entered a plea of not guilty not guilty by reasons of insanity. I'm sorry. I'm over here stumbling over my own words and stuff. I'm usually not like this unless I'm tired. It was accepted the second time around, and the most obvious is that 5 years had passed since the commission of the crime, and the passage of time may have allowed the community to forgive her for her crime. Sound familiar? The Casey Anthony case. There's another one too that I mentioned, Timothy Jones. That was a real sick case too. But another theory that involves the idea that the jury was not death qualified and may therefore have been more liberal. There were also 2 other women found not guilty for reasons of insanity for harming their children in Texas between the time of her first and second trials. Regardless of the reason, Andrea Yates will now spend the duration of her confinement in a maximum security hospital in northern Texas until she is deemed to no longer pose a risk to herself or others. Now, I'm going to give y'all some history of filicide. And once I get down to the key things, a lot of the Summer Wells case is going to come to mind. Just watch. Filicide has existed since the dawn of mankind. In ancient Grecio, why did I say Grecio? I'm telling y'all, Greco-Roman times, a father was allowed to kill his own children without legal repercussions. Despite the later rise of Christianity and its greater respect for life, filicide continued, often perpetrated by the mother, who may have claimed the child accidentally suffocated in bed. Reasons for wanting to end the life of a child, particularly a newborn, included disability, gender, lack of resources to care for the child, or illegitimacy. And these reasons still hold true today. But however, without our current systems of documentation, including the birth records and the death records, it's far easier to succeed in completing a filicide act in earlier times without the knowledge of authorities, who may have turned the other cheek regardless of the laws in order to strike a balance between population growth and resources available in impoverished areas. What I'm trying to say is that even back then, law enforcement would turn the other cheek due to them living in poverty and not being able to afford means of taking care of the child, which still don't make it right. There's always other options to go as opposed to killing them. Sorry, guys, I gotta have my caffeine to wake up. Okay. In the 16th and 17th centuries, a drastic change in the opinion on child murder occurred in Europe, France, and then England established laws that made filicide a crime punishable by death. Both countries also presumed that the mother who was on trial for the crime was guilty until proven innocent, meaning that she was responsible for proving to the court that her child was not the victim of murder. Sorry, guys. And then the tide changed again with the establishment of the Infanticide Acts of 1922 and 1938 in England, which these laws recognize the effect that birthing and caring for an infant can have on a mother's mental health for up to 12 months after the event. These acts outlaw the death penalty as punishment for maternal infanticide, making the punishment similar to that of manslaughter. Several other Western countries have adopted similar laws, with the exception of the United States. Filicide has a presence in literature from all eras. Perhaps the most famous is also the oldest, and that is the story of Medea, a woman who killed her children to punish her husband for his affair, which sounds a lot like the Timothy Jones story. In this case, where he punished his ex-wife, where he killed his children to punish his ex-wife for leaving him and supposedly having an affair on him. To him, she says, "Thy sons are gone, are dead and gone. That will stab thy heart." Even fairy tales meant for children, such as Snow White and Hansel and Gretel, are filicidal in nature, telling of evil step-parents who cast their children out into the world with the hope of eradicating them. This also will put some thoughts into your head about the Orrin and Orson West case as well. I thought a lot of them when some of this stuff was, when I was taking notes and doing research on this stuff. Often, filicide refers to any murder of a child up to the age of 18 years committed by his or her parents or parental figure or figures, including guardians and step-parents. Sound familiar? Teresa Balboa, Chris Watts, Casey Anthony, John Benet Ramsey, Summer Wells, James Beale, which his father did that to him, grandfather. Orrin and Orson West. It's just a lot of kids. Neonaticide is a term that's coined by Philip Resnick in 1970, and it refers to the unique circumstance in which a newborn is killed by his or her parent or parents within the first 24 hours of life. It is important that we recall that filicide can be committed by both men and women, though far less literature exists on paternal, which means the father, filicide than maternal filicide. And filicide is children up to the age of 18. Infanticide is from birth up to 1 year, and neonaticide is 1 day up to months. In an effort to aid in understanding a parent's motivation for killing his or her child, multiple classifications systems of filicide have been devised based on the type of crime and the gender of the perpetrator. The systems serve to better delineate the motives behind these crimes. The first classification system is identified in psychiatric literature and was published in 1927, which divided mothers who committed filicide into two groups: those who perpetrated the act while lactating and those who did so after the end of lactation. Of the 166 cases the author reviewed, he believed that 70% were related to exhaustion or lactation psychosis. Though this system has fallen out of favor, it is founded on the important idea that filicide may be motivated by the hormonal changes and stressors associated with childbirth and caring for an infant. A 1957 study established that two groups of homicidal mothers who killed their illegitimate infants in the first day of the infants' lives. Group 1, which was identified as young, immature primiparas who submit to sexual relations and have no history of legal trouble, while Group 2 consisted of women with strong primitive drives and little ethical restraint. The large majority of women who commit neonaticide fall into the first of these categories. This study made significant strides in identifying neonaticide as a distinct crime involving very different circumstances when compared to other filicides. One of the most influential classifications of child murder was created in 1969 by Philip Resnick. He reviewed 131 cases of filicide, which was committed by both men and women, and were discussed in psychiatric literature dating back from 1751 to 1967, and he developed 5 categories to account for the motives driving parents to kill their children. Altruistic filicide, which means the parents killed the child because it is perceived to be in the best interest of the child. Acts associated with parental suicidal ideation. The parent may believe that the world is too cruel to leave the child behind after his or her death. Another act is meant to relieve the suffering of the child, such as if the child has a disability, either real or if it's imagined, that the parent finds intolerable, like autism, Down syndrome, or you got ADHD, ADD, ODD, any of those. Or it could just be made up in their damn head, like Timothy Jones made up that his youngest child, which was 6, was making plans to kill him. Acutely psychotic filicide. The parent responding to psychosis kills the child with no other rational motive. This category may also include incidents that occur secondary to like I told y'all, I'm tired. Automatisms related to seizures or activities taking place in a post-critical state. Told y'all, I'm seeing double. Unwanted children or unwanted child filicide. Now listen to this. This is where the parents kill the child just because they regard that child as a hindrance. This includes parents who benefit from the death of the child in some way, like in inheriting insurance money or marrying a partner who does not want stepchildren, or adopting children just to take their money. Now that sounds like Summer Wells and Orson West. Accidental filicide, where the parent unintentionally kills the child as a result of abuse. This is another one to think about. Orson West, James Beale, Summer Wells. This category includes the rarely occurring Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Then there's this, which was what Timothy James did. Or Jones, I'm sorry. Spouse revenge filicide. It's where the parent kills the child as a means of exacting revenge upon the spouse, perhaps secondary to infidelity or abandonment. And the most common motive was altruism, which is the parents kill the child because it is perceived to be in the best interest of the child. That category was accounted for 49% of the cases reviewed. The least common motive was spousal revenge, which accounted for only 2% of the murders. This comprehensive classification system can be applied to both female and male perpetrators. Then there was another classification system based on the impulse to kill that was done by Scott in 1973. This was the first classification system in the literature based solely on the actions of fathers. The system was derived from his research involving 46 fathers who killed their child or children. In 1999, Giuliardo published a classification system that was based on Resnick's system, which was enhanced to reflect a broader range of motives. In 2001, Meyer and Oberman, they created a classification system identifying the causes of maternal infanticide. While there certainly exists some overlap between the classification systems proposed over the last several decades, the development of these systems contributes some important points to the growing body of knowledge related to filicide. Now, Scott's classification system based on paternal, which is father filicide, the very first one, which is the number one, was elimination of an unwanted child by assault or neglect. Summer Wells, Orson West. Mercy killing, gross mental pathology, stimulus arising outside the victim, and the victim as stimulus. Give me just a second here. I'm trying to pull up the definition that I have in my notes for gross mental psychology. Sorry guys, give me a minute, I'm gonna pause it. Okay, like a gross mental psychology is those that treat depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and sometimes the psychological damage is severe enough to where a person's inability to effectively communicate or think clearly. And it causes significant distress or impairment, and you will have gross hallucinations.